I'm lying here in the dark, listening to it tap against the window, and I keep thinking about how some friendships feel more like family than blood ever could. My name is Emily Harper. I'm 34 years old now. And tonight, if you're lying in bed with the lights off, maybe the rain is keeping you company too, I'm going to tell you the whole story. The real one. The one I've never told anyone from beginning to end. This is the story of my best friend Rachel, the girl I once loved like a sister, and how everything we built together slowly fell apart. Get comfortable. Pull the blanket up a little higher. This one is long. This one is slow. This one carries a lot of love, and later, a lot of pain. But right now, I just want to remember the beginning when everything still felt simple and safe. Soft rain sounds fade in gently. I met Rachel on the second day of freshman year at the University of Illinois. We were both 18, both scared, both pretending we knew what we were doing. She was assigned to the same dorm room as me. The first time I saw her, she was standing on a chair trying to hang a string of fairy lights across the ceiling. Her hair was messy, she had paint on her cheek, and she was cursing under her breath because the tape kept falling. I stood in the doorway with my suitcase and said, "Need some help?" She looked down at me, grinned, and said, "Only if you promise not to judge my terrible decorating skills." That was it. From that moment on, we were inseparable. We stayed up until 3 a.m. talking about everything, boys. Dreams, fears, our families, the kind of women we wanted to become. She was loud, funny, and fearless in a way I never was. I was quieter, more careful, the one who remembered deadlines and made sure we had food in the mini fridge. We called each other roomie at first, then bestie, and eventually it just became my person. We did everything together. We studied in the library until it closed. We shared one umbrella when it rained and still managed to get completely soaked. We cried together when her grandma passed away, and I cried in her arms when my parents announced they were getting divorced. She was the one who held my hair back when I got sick from cheap vodka at a party. I was the one who stayed up all night with her when she thought she might be pregnant. I remember the first time we pulled an all-nighter together. It was for our English literature final. We had 2 large pizzas, a bag of sour gummy worms, and way too much coffee. At around 4 a.m., Rachel started reading Shakespeare out loud in a terrible British accent. I laughed so hard I snorted coffee out of my nose. We ended up lying on the floor surrounded by highlighters and notes, talking about what kind of women we wanted to be when we grew up. She said she wanted to be fearless. I said I wanted to be someone who never felt alone. Another night, during a huge snowstorm, the whole campus shut down. We were stuck in our dorm. Rachel dragged me outside at midnight, wearing nothing but pajamas and boots. We made snow angels in the middle of the quad, while snowflakes fell on our faces. We were freezing and laughing like idiots. When we finally came back inside, we took hot showers and shared one big blanket while watching old episodes of Friends. There was also the time Rachel got her heart broken by a guy on the basketball team. She cried for 3 days straight. I skipped all my classes, bought her favorite Thai food, and let her sob into my shoulder while we watched romantic comedies and made fun of every guy who ever hurt us. We were each other's person in every way. When I got a C on my first big psychology paper, Rachel stayed up until sunrise helping me rewrite it. When she got rejected from an internship she really wanted, I baked her terrible chocolate chip cookies and told her she was still the most talented person I knew. We even had a silly little tradition called Future Box. Every month we would write a letter to our future selves and put it in a shoebox under my bed. We promised we would open the box together on the day we turned 30. I still have that box somewhere. I haven't opened it yet. Sophomore year, we moved into a tiny off-campus apartment together. We painted the living room walls a soft sky blue and hung up fairy lights everywhere. We called it the nest. Some of my favorite memories happened in that little apartment. Late nights, eating cereal straight from the box while talking about our dreams. Dancing in the kitchen to old songs while making spaghetti. Crying together on the couch when life felt too heavy. Celebrating every small win, a good grade, a new job interview, even just surviving a tough week. Rachel was the loud one, the brave one, the one who pushed me to try new things. I was the steady one, the planner, the one who made sure we didn't run out of toilet paper or forget to pay the electric bill. We balanced each other perfectly. We were more than friends. We were each other's safe place. After graduation, we both stayed in Chicago. I got a job at a marketing agency. Rachel became a graphic designer. We got apartments only 15 minutes apart and still saw each other almost every weekend. We had our rituals. Every Sunday morning, we would meet at the same little coffee shop, order the same oat milk lattes, and sit for hours talking about life. We called it Sunday Reset. She was the first person I told when I met Ryan. I had gone on a blind date set up by a coworker. Ryan was kind, steady, and had the gentlest smile I had ever seen. On our third date, he brought me flowers and remembered that I liked vanilla in my coffee. When I told Rachel about him, she squealed so loud the people at the next table turned to look. She hugged me tight and said, "Emily, if he makes you happy, I already love him." She met Ryan a few weeks later. The three of us went to dinner. Rachel grilled him with questions, but in that protective, big sister way. At the end of the night, she pulled me aside and whispered, "He's a good one, Emily. Don't let this one go." I didn't. Ryan and I dated for 2 years. Rachel was there for every milestone. The day he proposed, the day we picked out my wedding dress, the day we argued about where to have the ceremony. She was my maid of honor. On my wedding day, she helped me get ready. She fixed my veil, wiped my tears when I got emotional, and whispered in my ear right before I walked down the aisle. "You deserve this, Emily. You deserve to be loved like this." I believed her. The first few years of marriage were quiet and good. Ryan was a software engineer. I kept working at the agency. We bought a small house in the suburbs with a backyard big enough for a dog. Rachel came over almost every weekend. Sometimes she stayed the night. We would cook dinner together, drink wine on the porch, and talk until late. Ryan never seemed to mind. He liked Rachel. He called her my wife's other half. I thought I had everything. A husband who loved me. A best friend who felt like family. A life that felt safe and warm. I believed Rachel, and I would grow old together. I believed we would raise our kids side by side. I believed nothing could ever come between us. I truly believed nothing could ever break what we had. Rachel was still such a big part of our everyday life. Even after I got married, our friendship didn't fade. If anything, it felt even stronger. She became a constant presence in our little house in the suburbs. She had her own key and would let herself in on random evenings, calling out, "Honey, I'm home," like she lived there too. We had our rituals. Every Thursday night, no matter what, we had girls' night. Ryan knew the rule. He would make himself scarce, go watch a game at a friend's house, or work late in his office. Rachel and I would cook something simple, usually pasta or tacos, open a bottle of cheap red wine, and talk for hours. We talked about everything. Work stress, marriage worries, the silly things Ryan did that annoyed me, the guys Rachel was dating and usually ghosting. We laughed until our stomachs hurt. We cried when life felt heavy. Sometimes Ryan would come home late and find us both asleep on the couch, the TV still playing some old rom-com. He never complained. He would just smile, cover us with a blanket, and whisper, "You too are something else." Rachel was the one I called when I had my first big fight with Ryan. I was crying in the bathroom at 1 a.m. She drove over in her pajamas, let herself in with her key, and sat on the cold tile floor with me until I stopped shaking. She didn't take sides. She just listened and held my hand. She was also the one who celebrated every small win with me. When I got promoted at work, she showed up at my door with balloons and a ridiculous cake that said "Boss Lady" in pink frosting. When Ryan surprised me with a weekend trip to Michigan, she helped me pack and made me promise to send her pictures of the lake at sunset. We were still each other's person. The one we ran to first when something good or bad happened. There were so many quiet, beautiful moments. One winter night, Ryan was away on a business trip. Rachel came over, and we built a blanket fort in the living room like we were still in college. We lay inside it drinking hot chocolate and talking about the future. She told me she hoped one day she would find someone who loved her the way Ryan loved me. I told her I hoped she would find someone who made her feel safe the way she made me feel safe. We fell asleep in that blanket fort. The next morning, Ryan came home early and found us tangled in blankets, laughing like teenagers. He just shook his head and made us coffee. I loved those years. I loved how Rachel was part of my marriage without ever feeling like she was intruding. I loved how Ryan accepted her as family. I loved that I never had to choose between my husband and my best friend. Those first few years of marriage felt like the calmest, warmest chapter of my life. Rachel was still my person. She came over almost every weekend. Sometimes she would show up on a random Tuesday night with takeout and a bottle of wine, saying she just needed Emily time. Ryan never complained. In fact, he seemed happy to have her around. He would greet her with a big hug and say, "There's my wife's other half." The three of us fell into a comfortable rhythm. We cooked dinner together on Friday nights. Ryan and Rachel would team up in the kitchen while I set the table. They had their own little jokes, inside jokes from college that I was also part of, so it never felt like I was left out. Ryan would tease Rachel about her terrible taste in music, and she would roast him right back about his obsession with fantasy football. I would just sit there laughing, feeling lucky that my husband and my best friend got along so well. There were so many sweet, ordinary moments. One rainy Saturday, the three of us spent the whole day baking cookies. Rachel and Ryan were arguing over whether to add more chocolate chips or not. They were laughing so hard that flour ended up everywhere, on their faces, in their hair, even on the ceiling. I stood back and watched them, thinking how perfect this felt. My two favorite people in the world, happy in my home. Another time, Ryan's car broke down at work. Rachel offered to pick him up without me even asking. She brought him home, and the two of them walked through the front door laughing about something that happened on the drive. Ryan thanked her with a big hug. I smiled and said, "What would we do without you, Ratch?" She winked at me and replied, "You'd be lost without me, Emily." I felt a tiny pinch in my chest, so small I barely noticed it. I told myself it was just me being tired. I told myself it was nice that my husband got along so well with my best friend. I pushed the feeling down. Because that's what you do when you trust people completely. You don't look for cracks. You don't question the small things. You just keep believing that everything is exactly as it seems. Ryan and Rachel still acted completely normal around me. Maybe even better than normal. They were warm, affectionate, always laughing together. Rachel would show up with coffee for both of us on Saturday mornings. Ryan would tease her about her latest terrible dating story. I would sit there smiling, feeling grateful that my husband and my best friend got along so well. But every now and then, something small would feel off. Like the way Ryan started checking his phone more often when Rachel's name popped up. He used to leave it face up on the table. Now he would turn it face down or slip it into his pocket quickly. When I asked him about it once, he smiled and said, "Just work stuff, babe." I believed him. Or the way Rachel started knowing things about our life that I hadn't told her. Little details, like the argument Ryan and I had about money last Tuesday, or the fact that Ryan hated the new curtains I bought. When I asked her how she knew, she laughed and said, "Ryan mentioned it when I called him about my laptop." Again, I told myself it was nothing. They were friends talk. One Friday night in late October, the three of us were watching a movie on the couch. I was in the middle, Ryan on my left, Rachel on my right. At one point, I got up to make popcorn. When I came back, they had shifted. Rachel was now sitting where I had been, and Ryan had his arms stretched across the back of the couch behind her. It wasn't touching her, but it was close. I paused for a second in the doorway. Something in my stomach twisted. But then Rachel looked up, grinned, and said, "Hurry up, Emily, the best part is coming." I smiled, handed them the popcorn, and sat back down. I pushed the feeling away. I kept pushing it away for months. There were other tiny moments. Rachel would text Ryan directly to ask what time I was coming home. Ryan would sometimes stay up late, working in his office, and I'd hear him laughing softly on the phone. When I asked who it was, he'd say, "Just Rachel. She's having boyfriend trouble again." I believed him every single time. Because that's what you do when you love and trust someone completely. You give them the benefit of the doubt. You tell yourself you're being paranoid. You convince yourself that the little ache in your chest is just insecurity, not intuition. One cold December evening, I came home early from work. The house was quiet. I walked into the living room and found Ryan and Rachel sitting close on the couch, looking at something on her phone. Their heads were bent together. When they saw me, they both jumped slightly. Rachel recovered first. She smiled brightly and said, "Hey, Emily, I was just showing Ryan the new logo I designed for my client." Ryan nodded quickly. "Yeah, it looks really good." I stood there holding my bag, feeling that same tiny twist in my stomach again. But I smiled back and said, "Looks great, Ratch." Later that night, after Rachel had gone home, I asked Ryan casually, "You two seem really close lately." He looked at me, surprised. Then he laughed softly and pulled me into his arms. "Of course we are. She's your best friend. She's family." He kissed my forehead and said, "I love you, Emily. Don't overthink it." I let him hold me. I let myself believe him. Because the alternative, the idea that something might be happening between the two people I trusted most, was too painful to even consider. So I kept smiling. I kept trusting. I kept telling myself everything was fine. The weeks that followed felt quieter, but not in a peaceful way. It was the kind of quiet that hums underneath everything. The kind you can't explain, but you can feel it in your chest when the room gets too still. I started noticing more. Not big things, never big things at first. Just patterns. Rachel texting Ryan instead of me. Ryan stepping out of the room to take calls he used to take right in front of me. The way they sometimes looked at each other. Quick, fleeting glances that disappeared the moment I turned my head. Soft rain continues in the background. One night, I woke up around 2 a.m. The house was dark, but I noticed the faint light under Ryan's office door. I got out of bed, wrapped myself in a blanket, and walked down the hallway slowly, my bare feet cold against the floor. As I got closer, I heard it. Ryan's voice. Low, soft. And then laughter. A woman's laughter. "Rachel." I froze. For a second, I told myself there had to be a reason. Maybe she was upset. Maybe she needed someone to talk to. I almost knocked. But something stopped me. Instead, I stood there, listening, my hand hovering inches from the door, my heart beating so loud I was sure they could hear it. "You're terrible," Rachel whispered, laughing. "Only for you," Ryan replied. Silence. Then softer, too soft to fully make out. I stepped back. Slowly. Quietly. I returned to bed and lay there staring at the ceiling until morning. I didn't say anything the next day. Or the next. Because once you say it out loud, it becomes real. And I wasn't ready for that. The doubts started to grow, not all at once, but like cracks in glass, spreading quietly, slowly, until you can't ignore them anymore. I began watching more closely, listening more carefully, not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't stop. Rachel still came over, still laughed, still hugged me like nothing had changed. Ryan still kissed me goodbye in the mornings, still told me he loved me. And somehow, that made it worse, because everything looked the same. But it didn't feel the same. One evening in January, everything shifted. It was small, so small that anyone else might have missed it. Rachel was in the kitchen with Ryan, cooking like they always did. I was in the living room scrolling through my phone. I heard them laughing. Then silence. Not the normal kind. The kind that feels heavy. I looked up, and for just a second, I saw it. The way Rachel was looking at him. Not like a friend. Not like family. Something softer. Something wanting. Ryan didn't pull away. He didn't look uncomfortable. If anything, he looked the same. Like it was normal. Like it had already been happening for a while. My stomach dropped. That night, I barely slept. The next morning, I made a decision. Not a dramatic one. Not loud. Just quiet and firm. I needed to know the truth. No more guessing. No more explaining things away. No more pretending. A few days later, the opportunity came. Rachel texted me that she might stop by that evening. Ryan said he'd be working late. Something about the timing felt too perfect. So I did something I never thought I would do. I left the house, drove away, waited 10 minutes, and then I came back. Silently, slowly. The house was dark except for the bedroom. My bedroom. My heart started pounding so hard, made my ears ring. Every step down, the hallway felt heavy. Like walking towards something I already knew, but didn't want to see. The door was slightly open. Just a crack. Enough. They probably thought I wouldn't come back. I never did before. I pushed it gently. And there it was. They were in my bed. Together. Asleep. Rachel's head resting on his chest. Ryan's arm wrapped around her like it had always belonged there. For a moment, everything went completely silent. No thoughts. No sound. Just stillness. Like my body didn't know how to react. And then it hit. All at once. The air rushed back into my lungs in a sharp, painful breath. My hands started shaking. My vision blurred. And before I even realized what I was doing. Are you serious? My voice broke the silence like glass shattering. They both jolted awake. Rachel sat up first, her eyes wide. Emily. Ryan scrambled beside her, panic all over his face. Emily, wait. Don't, I shouted, my voice trembling. Don't you dare say my name like nothing just happened. My chest felt like it was caving in. I looked at Rachel. Really looked at her. And for the first time, she didn't look like my best friend. She looked like a stranger. Why? My voice came out softer now, broken. Why would you do this to me? Rachel didn't answer right away. She just stared at me. And then, something changed. The panic faded. The guilt disappeared. Her expression hardened. Cold. Sharp. Almost relieved. She let out a small breath. And then she laughed. Quiet at first. Then louder. Because you had everything. The words hit harder than anything else. What? I whispered. She swung her legs off the bed, standing slowly, completely unashamed. You had everything, Emily, she repeated. The perfect life, the perfect husband, the perfect little house. Ryan looked at her. Stunned, Rachel, stop. No, she snapped, turning to him. I'm done pretending. She looked back at me. Her eyes weren't soft anymore. They were filled with something I had never seen before. Jealousy. Resentment. I was there for all of it, she said. Every step, every milestone, watching you get everything I ever wanted. My throat tightened. So you decided to take it? I asked, my voice barely holding together. She tilted her head slightly. Why not? She said. Ryan stood up quickly. Rachel, this is. Sit down, she cut him off coldly, and somehow he did. That hurt more than anything. I looked at him. The man I loved. The man I trusted. Was it real? I asked him quietly. Any of it. Emily, I didn't mean for this to happen. I was going to tell you. Please just listen. He couldn't look at me. That was my answer. The next few days felt like a blur. Papers. Lawyers. Silence. Ryan tried to call. I didn't answer. Rachel didn't reach out again. She didn't need to. She had already said everything. The divorce was quick. Not easy, but quick. I didn't fight for the house, or the furniture, or anything we built together, because none of it felt like mine anymore. The first few months, after everything fell apart, were the hardest. Not in a dramatic, loud way, but in quiet, ordinary moments that kept repeating themselves over and over again. Waking up in the middle of the night and instinctively reaching across the bed, only to feel cold, empty sheets. Making coffee for two, pouring it into his mug without thinking, then standing there, staring at it, until it went cold. Hearing something funny, and picking up my phone to text Rachel, only to remember there was no one on the other side anymore. The silence wasn't peaceful. It pressed against me, followed me from room to room, sat beside me at the dinner table, laid next to me in bed. At first, I tried to outrun it. I filled my days with noise. TV playing in the background. Podcasts I barely listened to. Scrolling endlessly through my phone just to avoid thinking. But no matter how much noise I added, the quiet always came back. I almost texted her again. I typed her name and stared at the screen for a long time, then deleted it. So eventually, I stopped running, and I started sitting with it. The healing didn't begin with something big. It began with something small. One morning, I opened all the windows, let fresh air into a space that still felt heavy with memories. I stripped the bed, changed the sheets, folded away anything that reminded me of a life that no longer existed. It didn't fix anything, but it felt like a beginning. I started creating new routines, not because I was strong, but because I needed something to hold on to. I woke up early, even on weekends, made my coffee slowly, sat by the window, and just watched the world move. People walking their dogs, cars passing by, rain tapping softly against the glass. At first, I felt disconnected from all of it, like I was watching life instead of living it. But slowly, I started to feel present again. There were still hard days where everything came rushing back without warning. A song, a smell, a random memory that hit too deep. On those days, I didn't try to be strong. I let myself cry. Not the quiet kind, the messy kind, the kind that leaves your eyes swollen and your chest aching. And after, I would sit there in the silence and realize I survived another wave. Weeks passed, then months, and something strange started to happen. The memories didn't disappear, but they softened. They stopped feeling like sharp glass and started feeling like distant echoes. Still there, just quieter. I began doing things alone. Not because I wanted to at first, but because I refused to stop living. I went to a cafe one afternoon, sat in the corner with a book I didn't really read, and kept glancing around, feeling like everyone could see I was alone. It felt uncomfortable, almost embarrassing. But no one was looking. No one cared. And slowly, I stopped caring too. I started taking walks in the evening. No music. No phone. Just the sound of my footsteps and my breathing. At first, my mind was loud, full of questions. Why did this happen? Was it my fault? Was any of it real? But over time, those questions faded. Not because I found answers, but because they stopped mattering as much. One day, I caught myself laughing. Really laughing. At something small. And for a second, I felt guilty. Like I wasn't allowed to feel okay yet. But then I realized, healing doesn't ask for permission. It just happens. Quietly. In moments you don't expect. I started discovering parts of myself I had forgotten. Things I liked that had nothing to do with anyone else. I rearranged my living room the way I wanted. Played music I loved. Cooked meals just for me. Simple things. But they felt mine. And then, one Sunday morning, I did something that felt symbolic. I didn't go to our old coffee shop. I didn't follow the old routine. Instead, I found a new place. Small, quiet, a little imperfect. I ordered my usual oat milk latte, out of habit, then sat by the window. Rain falling gently outside. Soft, steady, familiar. I wrapped my hands around the warm cup and just sat there, No memories chasing me. No heaviness in my chest. Just calm. And for the first time in a long time, I felt okay being alone. Not lonely. Just alone. And there's a difference. I still have the box. The future box. It's still in my closet. Untouched. Waiting. Sometimes I take it out. Hold it in my hands. Wonder what the girl I used to be wrote inside. What she dreamed of. What she believed her life would look like. But I haven't opened it. Not yet. Because I'm not chasing that version of me anymore. I'm becoming someone new. Someone softer. Stronger in quieter ways. Someone who knows that trust can break. And still chooses to keep her heart open. Even if just a little. I don't know what comes next. I don't know if I'll fall in love again. Or if I'll ever build something like that with someone else. But I'm not afraid of that question anymore. Because right now, I'm learning how to be okay. On my own. In my own space. With my own thoughts. And slowly, that space is starting to feel like home.